Happy Saturday once again, everyone, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition of the Winged Eagle podcast, and this is going to be a strange episode. We've got a lot to talk about, not only in regular wrestling, trying to get on with our Wrestling Nut lives and the storylines and what's coming up in the future for AEW and WWE and WrestleMania and all that stuff, but we also have to talk about the way our lives are currently being disrupted right now due to the coronavirus outbreak and everything surrounding that. So this is going to be a strange and different kind of episode, but we're going to get through it and try to just be business as usual. You know what I mean? But before we even get started, though, I just want to wish all of you well. I hope everybody is doing well through all of this, whatever your situation is, whether it be at work or home or however your life is affected by this. I hope that it's not too bad. I hope you guys are able to weather this storm. Unfortunately, I feel like we still have the worst to come. And whatever, you guys are doing in your lives and how you're being affected by this, I hope you're doing as well as possible, because a lot of people could find themselves out of work or have limited work or basically just be affected financially by this a lot, and not to mention the potential risk of infection and everything like that. So whatever's going on with you guys, my audience, I want you to know that I wish you the best, and hopefully we will all get through this and we can resume life as normal in a few months. But until then, things are going to be kind of strange, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about first. We're going to open with that and try to follow the normal format here on the podcast that we do on every Saturday. I'll start with the wrestling news, and then we'll, kind of mosey on in to Raw, AEW, NXT, and last night's very interesting empty arena SmackDown. And it was just a really interesting and kind of an eerie vibe, but I got to give credit to WWE and the men and women there and the wrestlers involved. They put on a pretty interesting and different show. Like, under the circumstances, I think last night was a positive SmackDown for sure. It gave, we all claim that every week on TV it's the same shit. It's the rinse and repeat. There's nothing different. And this time WWE was kind of forced to give us a different feeling show. And an empty arena show is not ideal. It's not something you want to do all the time. But I thought under the circumstances that it came off pretty well on TV. They had some filler with the replay of the Elimination Tag Team Chamber match. But other than that, for the work we saw in the ring, for the enthusiasm of the wrestlers and Michael Cole and Triple H especially, I think the WWE made the best of the situation. And I was pretty much happy with last night's SmackDown. And I'll tell you what, man, it's quite the investment that Performance Center turned out to be, because they can't even hold shows in Full Sail right now because of the limitations on gatherings and stuff. So I think that WWE's kind of landed on their feet in the sense that if they wanted to continue storylines and just have their wrestlers wrestle for television and in no audience and things like that, they have the opportunity to do that now with the Performance Center. But there's also a line you have to tread there, and not putting your employees and your wrestlers at risk either, because WWE's asking a lot for their performers to be traveling all around when they're kind of advising us to kind of limit travel and not be flying in a tube of death that's recirculating the same air through and everybody's breathing in and shit. So it's just probably not a smart idea to do any of that right now, but they're doing it anyway. And I have a feeling AEW might be doing something similar along with the UFC and stuff. So yeah, this situation is not good at all. Before we jump into the latest on WrestleMania and the coronavirus, just want to say hello to everybody in the chat and make sure that I can be heard. I can. Good to see about 100 people in here so far. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button for me. I would really appreciate it. We need the likes on this channel bad, and we also need the subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, click that button too. It's right below you. It takes like 2 seconds. You'll love it here. Let me just say hello to some super chats coming in. I know right off the bat before I even came live, Jimmy Anderson from Sweden, our good friend there. Hope you're doing okay over in your neck of the woods too, my man. Thank you for the super chat. And you just became a patron. Thank you, dude. I'm going to be shouting those out in just a second. I will look for your name on there if it shows up. I actually have to pull that up still. But I appreciate that super chat from you, Jimmy. Thanks for all the joy you give me and the rest of the community. Absolutely, man. You guys give me joy too. And I think I had another one down here from Barry. What's up, man? Greetings from Hawaii. Lots of talk about WrestleMania being canceled. What do you think will happen with the Hall of Fame? Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about first. And, WrestleMania, I think, they really would like to have it if they could. I just really see no way it can. And we'll get into that in a minute. But as far as like the Hall of Fame and, the go home Raws and SmackDowns and the night after Raw and shit, that could all be empty arena stuff. I mean, I just don't think it's going to be okay in 3 weeks, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But it's going to be an interesting, it just sucks all around. There's nothing about this that is good. And if any of you want to hear my thoughts a couple of days ago on the rumors of WrestleMania potentially being canceled and likely being canceled, I'm holding pretty firm that that's what's going to wind up happening. I did a big video on that 2 days ago, so that's on the channel right now. You can check that out if you want to hear some of my more detailed thoughts on the WrestleMania situation. And that's pretty much what we're going to open up here with, and I'm going to pretty much echo a lot of what I said the other day as well as we talk about this. But before we do, I do want to shout out these awesome patrons of mine, and go right on here, pull them up. Sorry, I meant to have this page pulled up. Here we go. But once again, Barry, who you just sent a super chat through, thank you, man, for your patronage. Blake Moran, Brandon Collier, I owe you a video coming up right after WrestleMania. Claudio Clavedetcher, Demanian Elwell Sr., Daniel Rodriguez, Devlin Husband, who probably will be peeking his head into the chat as well. Jimmy Anderson, there you are, man. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I knew about you, didn't I? Thought I did. Anyway, thank you for the $20 pledge there on Patreon. You are awesome, and glad to see you in here as well. Jordan Carg, John Riffle, John Redford, Josiah Blevins, K-Dogs, Kennel, Keith Salyers, Michael Kumo, Mr. Steve, Nathan Walker, Reese Jones, Ryan Y, Steve, and the Double Z TV. As always, guys, thank you for keeping this channel rolling and moving. Couldn't do it without you. All right, so let's get into, I suppose, the latest on WrestleMania and coronavirus. We have to open up with that, right? So as of today, as of Saturday, there is still no word on what the fate of WrestleMania is. And the city of Tampa and the mayor and the officials there did have a meeting on Thursday with WWE and Vince McMahon to discuss what they should do. And as of right now, they basically said they wanted to wait a week. So as of right now, it's in WWE and Vince McMahon's court. If nothing happens, Tampa's probably going to have to make a decision on this on their own. So a couple of things that I was pretty adamant about in my last video was all of this Vince McMahon talk, and I've been seeing this and it's just nauseating all over social media, all over Twitter, stupid, irresponsible YouTube videos being posted about how everything is only about Vince McMahon and only about Vince McMahon's greed. I understand that Vince McMahon is out of touch. I understand that WWE's booking is, in the goddamn toilet and has been for quite some time, and a lot of fans are just really, really fed up with the stories they hear about Vince and the way he is. However, I completely eliminate all of that when it comes to this situation. And when this coronavirus started and rumors of WrestleMania and the cancellation started circulating, and we've been seeing all of the other sports leagues, the NBA, March Madness, which really sucks, Major League Baseball, NHL, everybody has suspended operations until this gets at least better or resolved, or we get a handle on it or contained or whatever. We also had the XFL also suspend play as well. And one thing I saw about the XFL, they are still going to pay their players. So this ridiculous narrative that Vince McMahon is so greedy and the only thing that he cares about is putting money in his pockets is fucking ridiculous. And I find it so irresponsible that you have people with voices on social media saying this shit when it's just not the same thing. And the idea, to have the simple-minded idea that every single dollar generated in revenue from WrestleMania goes directly into the pocket of Vince McMahon, when in reality, it goes into the pockets of thousands of people, not only employees in the WWE, city workers of Tampa, people who work at the stadium, and lots and lots and lots and lots of independent wrestlers, because independent pro wrestling shows usually piggyback off of WrestleMania, and you have hundreds of them scattered out throughout the week in whatever city WrestleMania is in. And you've seen that on social media. All the indie wrestlers are promoting their appearances and things like that for WrestleMania. This is a big financial time of year for them. And to just automatically assume that everything is about Vince McMahon's greed is so short-sighted and so ignorant, to be honest. Because did it occur to anybody for 1 second that there might just be a fiber of good in Vince McMahon? Everybody is just hell-bent on assuming that this guy is the devil. And don't get me wrong, he's an asshole. He's been an asshole in his life before, but he's also done a lot of kind and generous things. He's helped out wrestlers financially. He's helped wrestlers purchase homes. He's taken care of people when they've had issues and struggles, and, and given people jobs when they needed. Vince McMahon is not some heartless, evil devil. Yes, he's got that cutthroat, attitude about him about certain things, but I think it's just really kind of irresponsible of the fans to spread this message that the only thing in the world that Vince McMahon cares about is money. Yes, of course, he does not want to cancel the show. Who would? If Payback was in 3 weeks, if Fastlane was in 3 weeks, if Battleground was in 3 weeks, this shit would have been canceled days ago. But this is WrestleMania. This is the worst time for this coronavirus to hit because this is their Super Bowl. So many people depend on this show to run. So I don't think it's just about Vince McMahon's greed and that's it. And I think the fans are so goddamn cynical and they're so quick to jump on these, basically this bandwagon, this sheep-like mentality that everybody says the same thing without thinking it through a little bit. Of course, WWE does not want to cancel WrestleMania if they don't have to. So they are holding out a little bit. But what's going to wind up happening, it's not going to matter. For all the people that are screaming and shouting from the rooftops that Vince is some greedy son of a bitch and he's never going to cancel WrestleMania, I got a news flash for you, dumbasses. He's not going to have a choice. His hand will be forced here, and I think that's probably what he's waiting for along with the WWE. Not only that, you have to take into consideration the safety and welfare of your own employees and your own talent. So I don't think there's anything wrong with WWE just waiting, and they're not going to cancel it unless they absolutely have to. And I believe that's all that's happening here. But instead, it's being turned into, oh, Vince is just so greedy, and he's going to do the show whatever he wants. He's going to do whatever he wants and hold the show, even if they cancel it. Basically saying if the government shuts it down, that Vince is going to do it anyway. How stupid do you have to be to actually believe that? You want to know another stupid thing that I've been seeing all over social media? This is almost dumber than that. Is that WWE is going to move WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia. Now, I know some people were joking about that because I tweeted something and like 3 people tweeted me like, oh, dude, I was just joking. But I wasn't even referencing their tweets. I was referencing people like in the community with like followings that are saying this. And I'm like, that makes no sense. You know, like that just makes no goddamn sense. It's not a matter of finding a place that will take WrestleMania. You know, like if Tampa cancels it, Vince is like, well, let's go find a city that'll take us. It's not about that. You know, I don't think WrestleMania is going to leave Tampa. I think if they cancel WrestleMania, it'll be a postponement type of situation, or it'll be a rescheduling. And I think it would likely stay in Tampa if that does wind up happening. Potentially not. Maybe they move it to a smaller arena. Maybe they go to Madison Square Garden, or maybe they move it to Orlando or somewhere smaller. But like just the idea of them taking it to Saudi Arabia, what does that solve? How does that make it better? How does that make it less safe to pack up all your WrestleMania shit and send it all the way across the country and have all these wrestlers travel around the world for WrestleMania? How does that make it a safer situation? That is just a ludicrous concept and so fucking stupid to me that it gives me a headache in my asshole. I don't understand what's wrong with people. Stupidity is running rampant right now. So when it comes to WrestleMania, they're going to do what they have to do. And if I'm a betting man, and I pretty much am, because last night I spent a little bit of time putting together a thumbnail and an overlay for when I inevitably have to do the WrestleMania has been canceled video. And, you know, there's a lot of talk too. You know, when I say canceled, I'm lumping that into the same definition of postponed or rescheduled. You know, if WrestleMania does not happen on April 5th, to me, that means it's canceled. Now, if it's rescheduled or postponed, great. Let's postpone it a month. No problem. I would love to find a way to salvage it. I wish the NCAA could have done the same thing for the college kids. They canceled the tournaments outright, but there was talk about doing maybe a 16-man tournament or 16-team tournament, really narrowing the field down and try to do something to crown a national champion. And a lot of sports leagues have got to kind of just wait and see. You know, it's really hard to make a plan when you don't know what the future holds. And in WWE's case, they're in a more of a difficult spot because they have to continue to build these matches, as we saw last night on SmackDown. They have to continue to build for WrestleMania without even knowing if WrestleMania is going to happen. So like I said, if this was not WrestleMania and this was Battleground in July or something, or if this was Hell in the Cell in October, I think it would have been canceled weeks ago, and WWE might have suspended all shows and not ran anything. Well, they might have done the empty arena stuff, but they could have just basically paused. But with WrestleMania, there's so much at stake. You have so many big matches and so much invested here, and this is supposed to be the culmination of a lot of your storylines and stuff. It puts WWE in a horrible spot, and it sucks. So it's obvious that they don't want to cancel the show. That doesn't make them some greedy, evil, devilish assholes. That makes them logical. We don't want to cancel our Super Bowl unless we don't have to. And think about it, the same thing with the NFL. You know, if this would have happened 2 months ago, right before the Super Bowl, they probably would want to wait until the last minute possible to make a decision that's going to financially affect so many people, not just Roger Goodell. Just like with WrestleMania, not just Vince McMahon. This simple-minded thinking is nauseating. The only thing in the world Vince McMahon cares about is himself and his money, and if the government tells him not to do something, he's going to do it anyway. That is a jaw-droppingly ignorant type of frame of mind. And it's everywhere out there right now on YouTube and on Twitter and all of that shit. And you guys are fucking dumb. So anyway, that's my little rant there on the WrestleMania Vince McMahon coronavirus situation. I would be willing to bet that within the next week, Tampa's going to shut this shit down. Doesn't matter what Vince wants. Doesn't matter how greedy you think he is. This show, based on what we've seen out there right now in the media and in your own lives, going to the store and the way, everybody is just handling this, how can you possibly expect this show to go forward as scheduled? Now, if something crazy happens here and they feel that, all right, if you want to take the risk, and they tell the public and they tell the fans, if you want to make the trip here, they're going to hold WrestleMania, come at your own risk or whatever. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I would say, great. I want everybody to be able to have WrestleMania and make that money, and for all the independent workers to be able to get these paydays. But that's probably unlikely. And even if that was the case, you're putting an awful lot of people at risk there. And I know some people have gone on record, Ryback, most specifically, saying that he doesn't think WWE should even be holding their empty arena shows. And there's an element of truth to that. I believe that as well. Given the severity of the situation, it's just the timing is what's worse here. Because like I said, if this was October and Hell in the Cell was on the horizon, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But this is WrestleMania. This is a big deal. And some people feel that WWE should just suspend all operations until it gets better. And I kind of feel that way too, because you have to wonder, what's going to happen here? Let's just say, for instance, they do cancel WrestleMania. They shut it down. What does WWE do? First of all, if it's rescheduled, we don't even know for when it will be for. They might reschedule it on paper. Okay, we're going to reschedule it for 30 days after the fact, but there's no guarantee that things will be better by then. So what do you do on TV between now and then? Do you run all of those empty arena Raw and SmackDowns and continue building your storylines? Or do you abandon the matches you had for WrestleMania and move on to other things? So if WrestleMania is postponed a month or two, do you keep the card intact? I would assume that some things are going to have to change. I really want to see Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. I want to see Drew and Brock. I want to see Edge and Orton. I want to see AJ Taker. So maybe they keep the core, the big marquee matches intact, and then maybe they have to shit and shuffle some stuff around underneath that. I don't know. There's a great deal of uncertainty here because we don't know what's going to happen in the world with the virus, with WrestleMania, with anything that's going on. And a lot of states are limiting public gatherings over a certain amount of people. Florida has even done that. But the city of Tampa has not officially shut down WrestleMania yet, but it's going to pose a problem for AEW, who's also moved their shows out of New Jersey, I think, and down to Florida, and then Florida did the thing. So I think they had planned to have this week's Dynamite at Daly's place, but that is going to be allowed, but it's probably going to have to be in front of an empty arena. Last I read yesterday, it was going to be a limited audience, but it most likely will look very much like SmackDown did. And AEW, unfortunately, they don't have a performance center. They don't have a place where they can just, I'm sure they can find one, where they can just put these shows on in an empty setting. But they might have to do the same thing, or they might decide that just everything is on hold. Just everything, all the TV, all that stuff is going to be on hold until we get a resolution here to what we're going to do going forward. So this whole situation sucks. Now, today there was even more news on the travel ban. The UK and Ireland have been added to the travel ban coming into the US, and that's a shit ton of fans too. It was bad enough they did that to the rest of Europe, but so many fans come from the UK and a great deal from Ireland as well. So that's a big chunk of fans right there. So already, even if WrestleMania goes on April 5th as planned, you're looking at what, maybe 25,000 less people? What do you think the number is on that? How many people travel from overseas? Maybe 20,000, something like that. So either way, you're now down from 80,000 people to 60,000 people. And of those 60,000, how many people are just going to not go? You spend a lot of money on WrestleMania tickets, but I would assume if WrestleMania happened, you will have people that just won't feel comfortable traveling. Somebody who lives in fucking Washington or something. I don't want to fly all the way down to Florida, all the way across the country. An 8-hour flight, breathing the same air of 400 strangers. Fuck that shit. So some people might not even want to do that. So I just have a hard time believing that WrestleMania is going to go on as planned. I don't see it happening. But as far as WWE waiting until the last minute, I don't blame them on that one. Like I said, if they were doing this and it was Hell in the Cell, I'd be infuriated. But WrestleMania, I understand. There's just too much at stake. Don't cancel unless you have to. But I think we can all agree, based on the climate and everything that's going on out there right now, they're going to have to. It just sucks, I mean, everybody is affected by this. Our jobs. I've been off of work for the past 3 days. I do go into work tonight, but then after that, I'm off for like another 3 days. And this is going to have an effect on me financially. And it's going to have an effect on the YouTube channel financially. WrestleMania is a great time of year for me. I take in a ton of views, get a ton of subs, ton of donations, all that stuff. And now I don't get to do this stuff. We don't get to talk about WrestleMania. I don't get to do a WrestleMania review. I don't get to do any Raw. Well, I guess I can still do Raw watch-alongs. Incidentally, I will be up here on Monday watching the empty arena Monday Night Raw. And we'll talk about that too. Stone Cold Steve Austin is advertised for this show. It's going to be very interesting when he hits all four corners and there's nobody to cheer for him. But I'll be doing that this Monday. We'll live react as usual, but I'm kind of bummed out just for the traction and the traffic that the channel gets this time of year. It's not only affecting my regular job, it's affecting my second job. So like I said at the top of the broadcast here, I hope you guys are all doing all right, with whatever your jobs are. I hope it hasn't affected you too greatly and you're able to weather the storm until we figure it out, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. I recommend not watching the news. None of them. I mean, they all suck. MSNBC and CNN and especially Fox News. They are kind of, it's just really tough to watch those because there's so much politicalness involved. I've been trying to watch interviews from like doctors. What a really good actually thing to watch if you just want to learn about the coronavirus without any bullshit. Joe Rogan's podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, about 3 days ago, he had a gentleman on his show by the name of Michael Osterholm. Now, he is a medical professional. He's kind of like a medical detective that's been working his entire life in this field of learning what's causing viruses, isolating them, treating them, that sort of thing. So his whole job basically is to deal with things like unknown viruses and shit. And he was really informative, and it's just a good thing to just watch. You just want to learn about it. It's a bit scary because he keeps it real, but he's not peddling any sort of agenda, which is really good. So from a political standpoint, it makes things even more messy because there's a ton of misinformation out there, and this is just not the time for any like sort of political bias. And Donald Trump, I don't care. We don't talk politics on the show, but he does not know what the fuck he's doing, and he's fucked up big time. And to not be able to see that is to be willfully and voluntarily blind and deaf. And I don't think it's good to watch news networks that despise Trump or that love Trump. No matter what side of the fence you're on there, I don't think it's good to really listen to any of those people right now. Listen to yourself, trust your instincts, try to get doctor's advice, and try to read and just stay away from the goddamn media in general and try to stay as informed as you can without the influence of that stuff. That's probably the best advice I would have. And I really only want to listen to doctors and people that are in this field. That's it. I don't want to listen to the CEO of goddamn Walmart and Target and everybody else that they paraded up on that circus of a press conference yesterday. I want to hear real professionals talk about this without any agenda. And those are really going to be the only people I trust. But in the meantime, all you can do is use common sense. Wash your hands, everybody. Hopefully you guys have got toilet paper in your house. I am running low, but I've got plenty of paper towels. I've got Kleenexes. I've got napkins, all that stuff. Shout out to the very generous fan yesterday. I put this up on Twitter. I even asked him if I could screenshot it. Very nice gentleman. Sent me a DM, and he's like, hey, Greg, just want to let you know I'm a manager of a Dollar Tree, and I've got hand sanitizer here. If you want me to save you a case or something and mail it to you, I will. And I was like, that's so nice of you, dude. I'm like, it's okay. I've got everything I need, but just the fact that you would reach out and offer that, I thought was very thoughtful. So I think that's a good message to be sent now. Stay positive, try to be there for each other, and just deal with this the best we can without trying to over panic, because that's another thing that's out there, the big debate. Some people think it's not a big deal. Our own fucking dipshit president only a week ago called this thing a hoax. Does it look like a hoax to you? That's the type of irresponsible type of shit that's out there, that gets blurted out there, that people take in and believe and then don't follow the proper precautions. This is no goddamn joke. This is not a joke. I'm 43 years old. I've never experienced anything like this before. That's why I was getting on the fans' case about the Vince McMahon stuff. You can't look to the past for evidence here. You can't say, well, Vince didn't stop the show when Owen died. Doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. These are two completely separate situations. This is so much more gnarly than anything we've had to deal with. So there's no precedent set yet. You have no basis for comparison. You can't say, well, last time this happened, WWE did this or WWE did that. There wasn't a last time. This is the first time. And it ain't good. And it is having this ripple effect through all of our lives. And that's why this is not to be, taken lightly or taken too seriously. There's got to be a balance between going to Target and buying a mountain of toilet paper and hoarding everything so people like me can't wipe their ass, and not taking it seriously at all and just rubbing your hands all over your face and licking everybody's phone and shit like that. There's just got to be a line between not panicking and taking the necessary precautionary steps. And I also feel bad for a lot of people that deal with anxiety, depression, mental health issues. They are probably pretty stressed out right now. So it's not the time for misinformation. It's not the time for leaders to vomit out mountains of misinformation to the people that they're in charge of. It's irresponsible. It's dangerous. So educate yourselves. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to anybody. Trust your gut. Trust your instincts and do your research. And other than that, stay clean. Wash your hands. Do everything you can, but still live your life. I'm going to be going to work tonight. I'm going to be out and about, and I'm going to, I won't shake anybody's hands, and I won't do anything crazy, but at the same time, I, want to try to resume some sort of a life as normal. And I think a lot of people are going to get cabin fever here, people who are stuck inside or maybe afraid to leave. When this subsides, I think the economy might see a nice boost, if things kind of get curbed in the right direction to where we see, okay, you can't stop it from spreading. It's everywhere now, but now we got the mobile testing set up. They're working on a drug. We're probably 2-3 years away from a vaccine, so we're going to have to deal with this for a while. And just like the flu of 1918 that killed 200,000 Americans, it kind of went away in the summer, but then blasted us right in the face again in the winter. So even if this thing gets better, it's going to come back, and it's going to be here for a while until we can get a drug made and produced to supply it to 7 billion people around the world. And none of this is good, y'all. This is just not good. But anyway, we can talk lots more about the actual coronavirus. This is really just supposed to be on WrestleMania and the effects it has on pro wrestling and all that stuff. So that's the latest there. We'll keep an eye on this. Like I said, I'm going to be off a lot. So once the word gets handed down on WrestleMania, whether it happens or not, I'll be up here to do a video about it. But I would assume that probably Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or something next week, some sort of a decision will be made, and we'll be talking about it. But in the meantime, you'll see me on Monday night for the Raw watch along for sure. But let me go back here, knock out a couple of more super chats that I think might have been coming in. Oh, maybe not. Oh, yeah, there's a couple. I thought I saw some on my peripherals. Let me knock these out real quick, and then we'll jump into the next order of business that I have on my notes, and it's about the revival. Interesting shit there. Where are we at? Michael Cuomo, thank you very much. Very generous Patreon supporter as well. Thanks for the $5, dude. How long till we get the Miz and Morrison's Hey Yo Yosh t-shirt? Oh, that's right. They did all that stuff on SmackDown last night. Knowing WWE, tomorrow, but, maybe the virus prevents things. But yeah, that's probably going to become a shirt. Hey, ho, ho shirt. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for the $2. You spent $2 just to correct your message. You are the man, Michael. Thank you very much for everything you do. Stone Cold 10X, thanks again for the $5. I'm in Houston, and paying the vendors and employees was a concern when they canceled the rodeo. Yeah, I mean, so like rodeos, everything, like all forms of entertainment, Broadway plays, school musicals, rodeos, any sort of gathering, monster truck rallies and shit like that. Any sort of gathering is not going to happen right now. Even PGA. That's when the PGA canceled their shit. That's what really kind of made me think, like, how can they do WrestleMania? Because in the PGA, I understand you have a clubhouse and there's a lot of people around each other, and there's fans there, but you're outside, you're in open air. I know you're not supposed to stay within 6 feet of each other and shit like that, but if you're in open air, you're just a lot safer in my mind. And plus, when you're playing golf, you're all by yourself with a lot of space around you. So if they're not even letting golfers do it, I'm like, man, what does that tell you? So that's why all these cruise ships and shit are getting infected, and because they just recirculate the air through all the cabins, and everybody just breathes in the air. You can wash your hands all you want. If you're breathing in the virus, if you're breathing in the same people or the same air that infected people have breathed out, you're going to get the virus. Doesn't matter if you have hand sanitizer. So this thing can be spread, really easily, and fucking sucks, man. But yeah, so anybody, regardless of what you're doing, is going to be affected by this in some way because of our jobs. Someone different. Thanks for the $2, man. I feel bad because I kind of insulted you there for, or not you specifically, but I insulted the people who think WrestleMania should be moved to Saudi Arabia, and that's just ridiculous because that doesn't solve the problem. Vince McMahon is not just looking for a place to have it. That's not what this is about. And I know some people were joking, but some people were dead serious, and I was surprised that people actually think that WWE would do that. I know it's, blood money, and I know it's sweet Saudi money and all that stuff that we like to say that's very fun to shit on the relationship with WWE and Saudi Arabia, and it is a fucked up relationship, but it does not apply here. WrestleMania will not be in Saudi Arabia. Absolutely not. Let's see, what else we got? BD Skeleton, thank you for the $1, man. Appreciate it. All right. So that's it. Oh, NASCAR too? Yeah, NASCAR is done. So basically everything is done. The only holdout is WWE. AEW hasn't really made any formal announcements other than the moving of locations of their shows. But eventually, they're probably going to cease operations as well, I would assume. And the UFC is going, where are they? Down in Brazil or something right now? Shit, I meant to write down the UFC stuff. As of right now, they were kind of on the fence too. They did announce that they were going to hold some fights in front of no audience, but the whole deal might wind up being shut down now. But it looks like UFC and WWE are the lone holdouts here, and we'll see what happens this week. It's going to be interesting, and either way, it's likely going to suck. But we can try to discuss some wrestling news, some regular stuff. Let's pretend the coronavirus doesn't exist for a minute, and let's talk about some other things. First thing I want to talk about is attached to WrestleMania, and that is the Hall of Fame. The British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, was officially announced earlier this week on social media, or I think on the Corey Graves podcast by WWE, that he will be going into the Hall of Fame this year, which is fantastic. He's been one of the holdouts. He's been one of the names on my short list. I have a short list. It's Martel, it's Bam Bam, it's Pillman, it's Bulldog. Those guys, for me, have got to fucking go in really, really soon. So Bulldog is now in. That's great. I think with maybe Pillman, they'll wait until Brian Jr. is maybe a little more seasoned and more of a veteran, and maybe he can come in and do accept his dad's induction or something. That would be nice. And with Bulldog going in now, you have to wonder what Harry Smith is going to be up to, or Davey Boy Smith Jr., and WWE's probably going to bring him in along with Georgia, who I think are both working for MLW, if I'm not mistaken. They were just down here in San Diego. Saw Alicia, too, posting a bunch of shit, having tacos here in San Diego, and they ran a show, I think, last night in Tijuana. So there are people still doing some things, but I think eventually people are just going to stop traveling. But who knows? But as far as the Hall of Fame goes, that's another thing that just sucks. I've been waiting forever for the British Bulldog to go in the Hall of Fame, and a few other names that are going in as well. But what's the Hall of Fame going to look like? If they cancel WrestleMania, do they cancel all the festivities attached to it? I would probably say yeah, right? Wouldn't you think that? Wouldn't you think you would just cancel the Hall of Fame, or would you could run a studio show. You could run a studio Hall of Fame. Hell, you could run a highlight Hall of Fame. But again, it just robs the fans of the induction and the speech and the moments and all of that. But technically, you could just do an edited show from the truck, highlighting all, do video hype packages for all of the inductees and just kind of officially put them in with no speeches and no nothing. But that would kind of suck. I'd rather have the Hall of Fame not go on at all than for them to half-ass it. And I don't really want anything half-assed. I'm not even really a huge fan that they have to wrestle in front of empty arenas, but at least it's something, and at least it's interesting, but I do think it will get old in time. So whatever goes on with the Hall of Fame, that ain't looking good either, man. I don't know. I think they should probably just postpone the entire thing. If that's what winds up happening, they postpone WrestleMania a month, you do it in late May, and try to keep everything intact. Try to keep your Hall of Fame intact. Try to keep your TakeOver intact. And try to keep your WrestleMania card, for the most part, as much as you can, intact. And that's kind of what I hope they do. And it's funny too, because that's why I was referring back to the storylines. Let's say, for argument's sake, WWE or Tampa cancels WrestleMania, but WWE still has the Performance Center, and if they wanted to, they can still run empty arena shows, and they probably will. So how do you further the storylines then if you don't have a WrestleMania, and if it's postponed another month? Do you keep building the same stories, or do you get some of these matches done and then move on to whatever you do next month? I would hate just to be in any situation like that where I have to make a decision, whether it be in WWE or NBA or any sports league that has to decide, what do we do, and then what do we do when it gets back? You can't make a plan. You can postpone WrestleMania 30 days, but there's no guarantee you will be ready in 30 days for something like that. So there's never been more uncertainty ever than there is right now. I really have no idea what to predict and how this is going to go. The only thing I'm pretty confident on is that we will not get WrestleMania as scheduled. That's going to have to be postponed. There's just no way. But even if they do that, that doesn't really answer our question as far as what we're going to see on TV and how life and business and wrestling is going to resume up until then. You just don't know. There's a strange times, extremely strange times. So anyway, I know I said I was going to stop talking about the coronavirus, but I wanted to talk about the Bulldog first. Now we'll stop talking about the coronavirus and talk about the revival. A lot of debates online too about what your favorite water is. Dasani was all they had left in the store, and I was laughing. Some people hate Dasani, and there was like a big Twitter argument between all the different waters and the deer parks and stuff. I'm pretty not picky. Like if it's a bottle of water, I can't really taste the difference between one and the other. But I currently have about a case of Dasani in my house right now, and that's all I got. So Dasani it is. Cheers. I also want to talk about the revival. Stone Cold, you had two $5 super chats. I thought I nailed them both, man. Let's go back up here and knock out Stone Cold. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your other one. Yep, I see it now. All right, before we talk about the revival, let me answer that other Stone Cold $5 super chat there. Jericho said when he left, he didn't want to burn the bridge with Vince because they are friends. Most of his top talent felt the same way. Yeah, I don't think Jericho is ever going to have a fully burned bridge there in WWE. Sure, they're probably not happy with him that he's working over there, but he'll go into the Hall of Fame. And I even saw Jericho on a podcast, maybe his own podcast. I forgot where he was talking about this. It was kind of recently, talking about when he told Vince that he was going to sign with AEW, and Vince asked him if he could get out of it. Like he brought it up to Vince, and Vince said go, so he signed. And then when he told Vince he signed, Vince was like, well, can you get out of it? And he's like, no, I signed the contract or whatever. So they're still cool. Like Vince is not like, that's just not something that's going to blacklist Jericho from, that's not a Randy Macho Man Savage move there. It's a totally different type of thing. So Jericho is always business, and Jericho's not going to burn that WWE bridge because Jericho is also a smart businessman, and he knows that the meat of his wrestling career and what he's always going to be looked back on and remembered for is what he did in WWE. So that's not something that you want to eliminate. You know, you want to stay in the good graces of WWE so you can continue to be remembered for years to come, collect them royalties and shit like that. So yeah, I don't think, even though WWE might be, you know, a little upset at Jericho, and there's some competition going on now, maybe some pot shots being traded, and Jericho's, you know, his likeness has been like limited in the Ruthless Aggression era documentaries and stuff like that. But aside from that, this is not like something where, you know, Vince has got a dartboard with Jericho's face in his house and he's pelting it with darts. You know, it's not like that. At the end of the day, all's cool. And I'm sure Jericho will have his own WWE Hall of Fame speech one day. What's the over-under on that? What do you guys think? Maybe WrestleMania 42 or something, maybe 5 years from now. Who knows? Anyway, can we now talk about the revival? I've been dying to get into this. It looks as if those guys are done. I think they've been sent home by the company. It looks like they are not going to re-sign. We knew that they wouldn't. They've been turning down every offer that's been put in front of them, including reportedly turning down $700,000 a year deals just to get out of there. They want out. They're not happy. They are creatively unsatisfied, and they pretty much hate it there. And I love that they do hate it, and I love that WWE can't convince them to stay. We need these talents here and there that are going to say, no, fuck this place. You guys have fucked us over and made us look like dumbasses. Now you want us to sign for 5 more years so you can just ruin the rest of our lives? We're young. You know, we don't have 30 years to wrestle here. You know, whatever we're going to do, we need to do when we're at our prime. And we're not going to just sit here and tread water and be in dumb segments on Raw and SmackDown every week and be completely unsatisfied creatively. So they want out, they're leaving, and they mean it. And both of them have kind of done some interesting things on Twitter. Scott Dawson the other night just tweeted a super pleasant scene from his house with his wife and his kids in the mountain, or this kid, his daughter, it looked like, in the mountains of North Carolina, just kicking back with the fire pit going. They're on their front porch. They got music playing in the background. The wife's got a glass of wine. You know, the daughter is running around having a good time. Just a very pleasant scene. And he said, he goes, this is the only thing that matters. I don't give a shit about this fucking company or what. My family, my life is what matters. And that's an excellent attitude to have. And I'm glad that they both feel that way. Now, Dash Wilder has also apparently filed a trademark for Cash Wheeler. Dash Wilder, Cash Wheeler. That's probably going to be the name he uses when they leave WWE. And he's also changed his Twitter profile. If you want to go look at that, his profile pic is just a blackout, just a black box. And he has changed his name, not his handle, but his name, I think, to C. Wheeler instead of or D Wheeler. I'm sorry, he's like D Wheeler, but he's done the trademark for Cash Wheeler. I don't know. Definitely looks like both guys are making peace with the fact that they're not going to be in WWE anymore. Luckily, they've been sent home. Now, they might be called back to do something, but I hope not. I hope WWE, because assuming there was no coronavirus right now and it was business as usual, I worry that WWE would call these guys, bring them to TV to bury them and shit on them as much as they could before they left. But now with the coronavirus stuff, I'd be really disappointed to hear that WWE like made these guys travel for no reason. You know, just let them go. They don't want to be there. They want nothing to do with you. Don't fuck with them, especially right now. Don't risk their lives to travel. Don't call them and say, hey, guess what? You got to be at the Performance Center. We're going to use you on, what fucking brand are they on anyway? We're going to use you this week on TV. That would be a dick move, you know, for WWE to do that, especially when they have no plans on staying or anything like that. Just leave them alone, let their contract run out and expire, and let them live their lives. That's all I ask, WWE. Don't be assholes for just once in your fucking lives, please. So anyway, that's really all I have for the wrestling news. There's not a ton of other stuff going on other than the coronavirus and the WrestleMania and how this is affecting pro wrestling in general. But the only other little tidbits I had was on the Revival and the British Bulldog. So aside from that, we're going to kind of run through some of the TV this week because this might be the last week of regular TV. I mean, excluding SmackDown last night, of course. This past week was probably the last regular week of TV that we wrestling fans are going to see for quite some time. We could be on the verge of many, many weeks of empty arena shows. I mean, it's just so uncertain right now. So that's kind of sad. But Monday Night Raw took place as scheduled last week. Big crowd and the whole deal. I was up doing a live reaction, so if you want to check out my live reaction to Raw last week, you can do that. It's on the channel right now. We had a big audience on Monday for that, so hopefully we'll have another big one this Monday for the empty arena show. Only a couple of tidbits I want to talk about this show because, you know, like I said, I watched it with you guys on Monday. But I went back and watched the Becky Lynch promo on Shayna Baszler. And you know what? In terms of Becky promos, this one wasn't as bad. This one I actually thought was not bad. Can't believe I'm praising Becky Lynch's promo ability, but this past week I thought was all right. You know, she's been really annoying. Don't like her mannerisms. Don't like the way she talks. You know, don't like this fake badass persona she has. It's very transparent. But on Monday, I feel like Becky had my attention a little bit. So props to her, and looking forward to her match whenever the hell it happens with Shayna Baszler. And it'll be really nice to just speculate on these matches and these storylines more. It's just, I don't think they're going to happen. So what's the point? Drew McIntyre also had a match with Eric Rowan. Now, last week, and one of the stupidest things we've ever seen in WWE, I mean, up there, it's on the list. After the weeks and weeks of build with Rowan and what's in his cage, WWE, from the minute they had him carry that cage, they had no clue what they wanted to put in there. And I hate it when they do that, because every time they start something without an end plan in mind, it sucks. Every time, 100% of the time. So finally, after all these weeks, Eric Rowan has killed people for just peeking. You know, these jobbers he was facing on Raw, they would just peek under the little thing. He would go ballistic and just straight up murder them. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks ago, he's just approached by No Way Jose and his Funkettes or Conga Line or whatever the fuck they are, and they want to see what's in the cage, and all of a sudden Rowan's like, okay, I'll show you. Like, well, what the hell was the last few weeks about? Why are you freaking out? And he pulls out, of course, we know, the big, stupid mechanical spider, which we all shit on and thought was dumb. And I think WWE took our advice, and I think they killed the angle, because on Raw, Drew destroyed Eric Rowan, beat him, took his cage outside of the ring, put it on the ground, grabbed the steel steps, and smashed the fucking cage. So in a way, it's good that they revealed that to be a mechanical spider last week. Otherwise, Drew would have looked like, you know, this big babyface is supposed to go face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, just killed a live animal on live TV. So luckily, all he did was kill a mechanical spider. I thought it would have been really cool if, I mean, they couldn't for TV probably purposes because it's too gory. AEW could probably get away with it, though. If they put like a blood pouch in the cage, that way when Drew smashed it with the steps, blood like splattered out. And they're like, holy shit, there was something alive in there or whatever. But that would have been, you know, probably pretty gross, and PETA would not have liked that. But it did kind of remind me a little bit, not really, but a little bit of when Earthquake squashed Damien back in the day. That was such a fucked up segment. They had Jake tied in the ropes, and, you know, Earthquake kills his pet snake. Like, God, that's fucked up. So it was kind of like that. But I think this might have been WWE's way of just scrapping the angle, you know, but I kind of argue that they shouldn't have started it to begin with, especially when they did feel like they were investing a little bit. Rowan was beating some people. He was squashing some guys. He looked like a very dangerous man who would protect the identity of what's in the cage at all cost. And then that was rendered down into one of the most silly angles ever with a mechanical spider. And then McIntyre ended the whole thing by squashing it. So I don't know why WWE decided to do that. I mean, they could have thought of something a little bit more creative to be in that cage, but I think they knew they were at a dead-end street there. I mean, what could you really do? You know, whatever's in there has got to be an animal or something, so they made it a spider and whatever. They just need to stop doing stupid shit like this, and they at least need to think down the line of how it's going to end, especially if they're treating it seriously. If they're treating it like a joke and they're treating the Rowan's cage like the 24/7 title the entire time, that's fine. But Rowan was being pretty serious about protecting that cage. He was having some serious matches, had a great couple of matches with Alistair Black as well. So he's just on a downward, you know, Rowan is just back to being the same Rowan that lost to The Rock in 10 seconds at WrestleMania a couple years ago. So that whole situation was stupid. I can't believe I spent that much time talking about it. Devlin, what's up, my man? Thanks for the $2. Poor spider. Yeah, poor mechanical spider. Damn. Also, a couple other things on Raw I want to mention. The Charlotte Flair promo. She came out talking shit about Rhea, talking smack about how she's WWE's new pretty toy, but she's going to put her down at WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley then comes out, shows up on Raw, gets in the ring, doesn't say anything, just punches Charlotte one time in the mouth, and that was the end of the segment, kind of walks away. Feels like a scenario we've seen a lot from the men and the women. There's always a segment somewhere where somebody talks trash, the other person comes down, punches them once, and walks away. Definitely know we've seen that before from men and women. And Charlotte would get her revenge on NXT on Wednesday. I also want to talk about the AJ Styles promo on The Undertaker. This was really interesting for a couple of reasons. Now, number one, AJ, he gets on the mic, and one of the first things he does is call The Undertaker Mark Calloway, almost like kind of humanizing The Undertaker a little bit. And he also calls out Michelle McCool. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on there? Now, just over the weekend or a couple days before this all happened, Michelle McCool got her panties all in a bunch because WWE, I don't even know what it was, I didn't even see it, but WWE released some sort of an article or a top 45 women in WWE list or something like that. Some sort of list involving the women and the divas of the past. Michelle McCool was not included on it. You know, which, who cares, really, but apparently she did. She got all mad. Even The Undertaker's Twitter page tweeted out something in showing his disapproval of that, and a lot of fans speculated that Michelle McCool might be the one running the Undertaker's Twitter account, because why would Undertaker, who never tweets anything, who really shouldn't have a Twitter account to begin with, to be honest with you, why would he give a shit about something like this? I mean, I know he's sticking up for his wife, but is this a battle you even really care to fight? If I'm a former wrestler and WWE released some stupid, meaningless top 40 people in history and I wasn't on it, I'd go right about my day. I just continue making my grilled cheese and not even worry about it. But it upset Michelle McCool, and she made that known. So did The Undertaker on social media. And then on Raw, you've got AJ kind of mentioning Michelle McCool in his promo. So it makes me wonder, is WWE going to get her involved here? Did they feel bad about that and called Michelle McCool and apologized to her and say, hey, how would you feel about coming in? I think she might get involved in this. And another thing I'm wondering, when AJ called Undertaker Mark Calloway, you know, that we've seen that slow kind of process here in trying to make The Undertaker a little bit more human. And I'm all wondering if this is setting up for an eventual retirement and a Hall of Fame. Because if all goes well, if everything goes the way I want it to, I want WWE to hold Survivor Series this year on November 22nd, because that will be the 30th anniversary of Survivor Series 1990, to the day when Undertaker debuted. I did a whole video on this back in the summer, where I said that would be the ideal day for The Undertaker to retire. That's coming up in like 7 months. So if they did that this year at Survivor Series, Undertaker has his full, real retirement where he actually fucking does it this time, and then goes into the Hall of Fame next year here in LA at WrestleMania. I would love to be able to witness The Undertaker going into the Hall of Fame. That would be so important to me to be able to see that live. So I'm really hoping that that's what they do. And if they do that, I'm wondering if they're going to take this next year to slowly start making The Undertaker a little bit more of a regular guy, because he was on the Broken Skull Sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And aside from badass biker Undertaker, American badass Undertaker from back in the day, we haven't seen that character sit back and talk like a regular person and drink Jack Daniels and shoot the shit with Austin. And I'm starting to wonder if WWE's trying to get us used to seeing The Undertaker as a regular guy. Because for years, we've always wondered, what's going to happen when Undertaker finally retires and he goes into the Hall of Fame? Is he going to come out in that dead man crap? Is he going to come out there in some outlandish costume and say, thank you for my Hall of Fame induction? You know, no, he's not going to do that. He's going to be a regular guy. He's going to thank the fans. He's going to talk to us. And I think this might be the beginning of kind of WWE preparing us to be used to Undertaker talking and acting like a regular person. And maybe if he does appear on TV between now and WrestleMania, whatever they do there in his build with AJ Styles, you might hear him speak a little bit more fluently on the mic. You could see his wife get involved and all of that, because I just think that eventually the fans are going to have to understand, and Undertaker's going to have to acknowledge that he is a regular person and that was his character. And he's been so protective of the gimmick for the past 30 years now. And just in the last year or so, you know, it feels like he's kind of coming out of that. And I think it was maybe 2 years ago or something, Undertaker did an interview, I think like in a church with a pastor or something in Texas or whatever, where he was kind of like a little bit normal. So we've seen Undertaker show small signs of not being in character 100% of the time. So that might be a part of this. And if Michelle McCool does get involved, that's pretty interesting, especially when AJ Styles has had his family fucked with already. Here's a guy calling out somebody else's wife when the same thing happened to him. Wendy, remember all that? You would think AJ would know better, because he didn't like it any better when somebody did it to him. So AJ, a little prick, busting out the shoot promo on The Undertaker and calling out his wife. So I found that to be interesting. Don't know what sort of, how that's going to add to the match or not. And if Michelle McCool really is going to get involved here, it's going to be interesting. I mean, maybe that's something the Undertaker wants to do, because the only other time the Undertaker has had a love interest involved in TV was back in 2001 when Sarah was being stalked by DDP. Undertaker used to have that Sarah tattoo on his neck. Remember that? So maybe he just wants, for his own career and his own marriage, he goes, I don't want the only time I had a wife on TV to be a wife that I don't love anymore. So maybe he wants to get his current wife involved in a storyline just so he can say that they did something together and it wasn't just him and Sarah. I don't know. That's a lot of speculation there, but it wasn't what I was expecting. Nobody's really called Undertaker, maybe once. Actually, I think once or twice somebody has referred to The Undertaker as Mark. As a matter of fact, I think that happened in the Ministry days, because back in the Ministry days was the first time WWE kind of acknowledged that The Undertaker was a character. He's taking his character too seriously. He's starting to believe in his persona. And that was a lot of the premise behind The Undertaker when he tried to embalm Steve Austin and all that shit. And he was doing a lot of the satanic stuff. So I think they might have alluded to it way back then in like 99, but it's been a long time. It's been 22 years since anything like that has been done or said. So it's interesting. And I'll be interested to see how it goes. I'm going to catch up those super chats as soon as we're done talking about Raw here. I also want to talk about the return of Edge. He was advertised to be on Raw this past week, so we knew that. The angle and the segment played out not really like I was expecting. They had MVP out there. So MVP is on the mic and starts talking about Edge, and he says he wants to start a faction. There's been talk of him trying to look for people to mentor and maybe starting a little group or being a manager or something. He has taken a position backstage where he is an agent and a producer, I believe. So they might want to use him on TV from time to time. But I like MVP. I respect the shit out of that guy. I think he's very smart, very intelligent. But as a wrestling fan, I personally don't need to see him on TV. I'd be fine if he wasn't on TV at all. Don't need to see it. So I can't tell if this is the beginning of him starting a faction or if this, much like the Eric Rowan Spider and Drew McIntyre segment, if this was just squashing the whole thing and we're not going to see MVP again. So he's out there on the mic saying he wants to start a faction and says he's got his eye on Edge. He wants to help Edge, and they're friends, and they go way back, and Edge will be just fine as long as he does everything MVP says. Heard that before, right? So Edge comes out, he returns, fans go nuts, he spears MVP. Randy Orton, I don't know where he was, if he was under the ring or if he was in the audience, but at the very second Edge hits the spear on MVP, Orton surfaces out of nowhere, shows up in the ring. Edge is able to counter the attack and hit Randy Orton with an RKO. So Edge RKOs Orton. He scurries out of the ring and escapes. He's kind of holding his neck as he goes up, and Edge is staring him down and all of that. So that's the most interesting storyline in WWE right now, and it's another reason why I'm so bummed out, because think about poor Edge. This dude was out of the ring for so long, and he comes back on the day that Kobe Bryant dies, which, didn't take away too much from his moment, but, a lot of people's minds were elsewhere. That was pretty shocking news. So he has to reappear on the same day that something like that happened. That's really going to be dominating the headlines, obviously, and occupying a lot of fans' minds. He's got to come back from that, or come back on the same day as that, but it didn't really matter. It's probably one of the most heart-tugging scenes I've ever seen. Like, I'll never forget that image at the Royal Rumble of Edge coming out and that look on his face. That will be tattooed on my brain until the end of time, because you've never been able to read someone's mind so well in your lives. You know, I know what Edge was saying to himself. He goes, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I really here? Holy shit, I'm going to piss myself. That's what was going through his mind right then. Just that look on his face. After all that time off, he never thought he'd be doing this again. And here he is. He's here. He couldn't even believe it. And there was never been more real. There was nothing fake about that. That was 100% real emotion from Edge. And we were all happy to see him back, and Edge has always been one of my favorites. And I think the Randy Orton feud is the most interesting one they have currently going in WWE right now. And it's probably the match right now on paper that I'm looking forward to the most. You know, maybe Charlotte and Rhea too. That's going to be good. So I hate that not only was Edge's return kind of dampered by the Kobe death, now he's trying to have this return match, something he's been waiting for a decade for, and it's all up in the air now. He doesn't even know if he's going to have it, and if he does, it's probably going to be postponed, and who knows, it might not happen at all. So it just sucks, you know, everything sucks here. But regardless of that, it was a good segment on Raw. Happy to see Edge back finally. I gave my little rant last week about why the hell he wasn't there the week before backing up his wife, but he's back now. That's all that matters. Welcome back, Edge. Hope everything works out. We had the main event, too, which was kind of crazy. It was Seth Rollins versus Alistair Black. Very interesting here. Tyler Black versus Alistair Black. Ends in a DQ when the AOP, the Viking Raiders, and the Street Profits all get involved. And that kind of leads to an 8-man tag that doesn't even include Alistair Black, which is good. A lot of fans thought that didn't make sense. I thought it made plenty of sense. And WWE is still doing a good job of protecting Alistair Black. You know, the other week, people were pissed because he lost to 3 guys on Raw, and they said he was buried. I'm like, give me a break. It's the OC, and one of them is a former champion, future Hall of Famer. There's no shame in losing to him, especially when you have to fight 2 people first. And I thought WWE did a pretty good job of protecting Alistair Black even in the loss. They didn't even make him lose clean, and there would have been nothing wrong with losing clean to AJ. The guy's going on to WrestleMania to fight The Undertaker. Wouldn't have hurt Alistair at all. But WWE still felt that it would have, and it was not the time to beat him. So if they are going to beat him, they're going to stack the deck against him. And here you see he's in the ring with Seth Rollins and doesn't even lose. Ends in a DQ, and then when they do the 8-man tag, which you knew the Monday Night Messiah was going to win because they just lost the tag team titles last week, and they lost the rematch at Elimination Chamber. They are not going to go into the ring again and lose. So if Alistair would have stayed in the match, he would have been on the babyface team, and he would have lost. So they got Alistair Black out of there, made it an 8-man tag with the Raiders and the Street Profits against the Monday Night Messiah, and Messiah got the victory when Seth Rollins pinned Montez after a stomp, I think. Now, Kevin Owens was attacked and beaten down earlier on in the night backstage by the Messiah. He shows up after the match, but winds up getting beat down himself, and Seth ends up hitting him with 3 stomps in the ring to end the show. So that's another match that we would expect, if all goes to plan, will be announced officially on Monday for WrestleMania. Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens. But, you know, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen there. So that's pretty much your Raw in a nutshell there. I wanted to mention those key parts of Raw because I found the show to be interesting. Not a great show. I'd probably give it a C at best. Probably a C is probably being generous there. C or C+, but I still thought, even though it was kind of a lackluster Raw, there were some interesting things going on there as well. So next up, we're going to talk about NXT. But before I do, let's knock out the super chats. Go way back up. Did I get everybody? BD Skeleton, I got you. Devlin Husband, I got you. Poor Spider. And Stone Cold, another $2. American Badass, my personal favorite Taker. Yeah, a lot of people liked him. I liked Badass Taker too. American Badass. It was weird to get used to at first, but it grew on me, and I loved it. Can you guys do me a favor too, since we got a decent audience in here of about 250 folks? Smash that thumbs up for me. I will love you for it if you did that. And we're going to talk about NXT and AEW next, the Wednesday Night Wars. Now, one thing I'll say right off the bat, usually I wait and let you guys know which show I think was better until the end. And AEW has been, I believe, on a 5-week winning streak. I've preferred AEW Dynamite the last 5 weeks in a row over NXT. But that ended this week. I liked NXT better. I'm giving the nod to NXT. I thought it was a better show. I thought it was more action-packed. A lot of good, crazy stuff took place on it. And even though Dynamite was good, I think NXT was better. So NXT picks up the win in my book this week. They did not win in the ratings, although it was a lot closer than normal. Both shows had dramatic drops in numbers. AEW, 766,000 viewers. NXT, 697,000 viewers. So both shows were down, and both shows were closer this week than in previous weeks. But there's probably a lot of play there, too. A lot of stuff was breaking during NXT and Dynamite. Now, this past week, I was off on Wednesday, but I chose to watch Dynamite first and watch NXT later, and I kind of wish I would have reversed that. But while I was watching these shows on Wednesday, when I was watching Dynamite, a lot of that stuff was breaking. That's when the NBA canceled the season. That's when Tom Hanks announced that he had coronavirus, and a lot of that shit was happening. And the minute Dynamite went off the air, I left the house and went and spent $200 at the grocery store. Like, it freaked me out. So I was able to watch it this week, which was a lot of fun, but it's a lot of things were going down involving the coronavirus during that 2-hour time span that Dynamite and NXT were on the air. Pretty crazy. But anyway, we'll talk about NXT first. Not going to run through everything, just going to casually kind of talk about some of the key points here. Show opened up with Keith Lee defeating Cameron Grimes in a pretty decent match, but not a really surprising match. There's no way Cameron Grimes is going to beat that guy. After the match, Damian Priest jumps Keith Lee. Dominic Dijakovic, I think he had a chair with him too, hits Keith Lee with a chair. Dominic Dijakovic comes out to make the save, runs off Damian Priest, but since Damian Priest hit Keith Lee from behind, and I said that too, as soon as I saw him hit Keith Lee like that in the back and he went down and Dominic came out there, I'm like, Keith doesn't know who hit him. And sure enough, he gets up and he gets pissed at Dijakovic, and I think he hits him with a spirit bomb, right? So total misunderstanding there, but it kind of plays into their rivalry, and I thought it was very good. Keith Lee is just an absolute treasure. We had Mia Yim versus Dakota Kai in a ladder match qualifier. They're supposed to do a number one contenders ladder match at TakeOver, assuming TakeOver happens. And the winner of that match will challenge the winner of Rhea Ripley and Charlotte, I suppose. Now, really surprising, they have both of these women in a qualifying match and only one can advance, because I would think that they'd both be in there. I kind of think Dakota, especially if we have depends on who comes out of Charlotte and Rhea. Charlotte wins the title. I think a babyface is going to win the ladder match. If Charlotte loses and Rhea retains, I think a heel will win the ladder match. So if Rhea Ripley were to retain over Charlotte, my pick, I kind of think it would be Dakota Kai. She's kind of the new hot babyface, turned heel at War Games, had that long feud with Teigen, seemingly won the blow-off last week in the cage match. She's got a lot of momentum. I would think that she would be the odds-on favorite to win the ladder match, but she has to get in at first, and she lost here. She lost to Mia Yim despite a ton of interference from Raquel Gonzalez. So Mia Yim advances, and she's in the match, and Dakota is not. But since it's still a few weeks off, I'm wondering if Dakota still winds up winning it. I can envision a scenario where she finds her way in the back door, because it was kind of the same thing with War Games. Wasn't she pushed out at War Games, and then she was let back in, and then she turned? So it could be a similar situation here where she doesn't qualify at first, but winds up not only finding her way into the match, but winning the match. But that's all based on Rhea winning. I don't think Dakota would be a challenger for Charlotte. I think Charlotte would win the title and maybe face a babyface first before hopefully dropping it back to Rhea Ripley and going back to the main roster. But a lot of speculation there. Who knows? But either way, Mia Yim is in the ladder match, and good for her. They did a segment later on in the show that I kind of missed, sort of, but I saw later. Some sort of a kidnapping angle with Raul Mendoza. He had a match earlier on with Kushida, I believe, that he lost. And I guess some guys in lucha masks jumped out of a van and threw him in there and drove away. So not sure what that's all about. So we got a kidnapping on NXT. We also had Tegan Knox defeating Dianna Perazzo. That was also a qualifier to advance to the ladder match. So Tegan is in and Dakota is not. So we got Mia Yim and Tegan in there first. And like I said, I think Dakota could find her way into the match and potentially maybe even push Tegan Knox off the ladder to win the match or something like that. But if Charlotte beats Rhea, I think maybe Tegan could be a likely option to win this ladder match as well and just be a good solid challenger for Charlotte to beat. So I think it might be, in my early prediction now, it will either be Tegan or Dakota to win the ladder match. We had the Broserweights defending the tag team titles in a rematch against the Undisputed Era. They won. They retained over those guys. They had a great I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think NXT had the better show this week. This was just a phenomenal tag team match. Really loved the Eddie Guerrero tribute in this match when they did the thing where they faked out the referee and made it look like, they got hit with it. What did they do? Took a bump, or Roderick Strong interfered or something like that, and they faked out the referee and did the kind of like little thing that Eddie used to do, because Eddie was famous for that, for hitting himself or making a noise with a chair, punching a chair, throwing the chair to his opponent, and then falling down. And then the referee turns around, thinks he got hit by a chair. Very cool stuff there. Dunn and Riddle would eventually hit their finisher, their double team finisher on Kyle O'Reilly for the win. The grizzled young veterans were out there as well, kind of interfering in this. So they are really making their presence known that they're going to be the next big challengers. And now that the Brosers and the Undisputed Era seems to be over with, Pete and Matt can move on to the grizzled young veterans. And I do expect the Grizzleds to win the titles at some point, but the Brosers are so entertaining. I'm kind of cool with them hanging on to them, at least for a little while. I've maintained all along that Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne's shelf life will be short. They're not going to be a tag team forever. We're probably talking about less than a year or maybe even 6 months. But I'm not ready yet. They just won the titles. Let's wait till the summer to take those off of them. Like I said earlier, Rhea Ripley had a chance to come out on the mic and speak, just like Charlotte did on Monday Night Raw. Charlotte came out this time, just like Rhea did on Monday, and attacked Rhea Ripley and put her in that figure 4 on the ring post. And it was interesting too, because Rhea was out there in her gear. Charlotte was out there in heels. And she's like, I don't know how women walk in those things, much less fight in those things. But Charlotte was able to still get the better of Rhea despite not really being dressed for the occasion, and then put Rhea in the figure 4 on the ring post. Love that move, innovated by Bret Hart back in 1997, and can't get enough of that. So good stuff there all the way around. And like I said, another reason why NXT, I think, got the better of AEW this week was just because of the great matches and the phenomenal segment at the end. Just amazing brawl for the ages between Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Tommaso is out there cutting a promo. Johnny appears on the big screen from just around the corner. I mean, the Performance Center is not huge, so he's on the Tron, but he's like literally 50 feet away in another room, and he's talking shit. Ciampa gets pissed, leaves the ring, goes back there to find him, and they even show, they're showing Johnny talking to the camera, and over his shoulder you can see Ciampa entering the room. The two start fighting, and they absolutely destroy the Performance Center. They go through drywall, they overturn desks, they get in a fight in the weight room where one of them throws a weight at the glass. How gyms all have those like giant wall mirrors, throws a barbell at the mirror, and it shatters and goes everywhere. So they did a few $1,000s worth of damage to the Performance Center here. Eventually find themselves brawling out into the arena. They come over by the commentary spot where they have that crow's nest, that big platform set up there, where they've done a couple of promos. And I think Velveteen even caught one on there earlier on in the night. So they're up top there. They remove the railings, and Ciampa eventually, it looks like one of them's going to fall over onto the table, because the announce table is right under that thing. And if I had to guess, I'm guessing 10, 11, 12 feet is that drop. It ain't small. It's not a small drop. They're up there pretty high. Eventually, Tommaso grabs Gargano and gets him in position for the air raid crash and hits it on the table from the crow's nest. Absolutely crazy. Fans lost their mind. Great brawl between the two. Just great stuff. Excellent show by NXT all the way around. And I'm giving them the nod for the better show this week. AEW wasn't bad, though. I enjoyed a lot on Dynamite. And we'll talk about that in 1 second, because I see Super Chats flying through in my peripherals. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't. I thought I did. Anyway, cool. I don't have to answer any of those right now. Everything looks like it's going on. Going good in the chat there. We're going to talk about SmackDown in a minute. Triple H's big demotion. I know that. Dean Ambrose's gas mask gimmick would be legit right now. True that. That's funny. Toilet paper match. Funny shit. Anywho, let's move on now to Dynamite, talk a little bit about that. That was a good show as well. Really enjoyed Dynamite, but I just think NXT had the edge on them this week. The show opened up with Cody Rhodes versus Ortiz. Now, a couple of things about this match. Lots of things were happening here. Number one, Jake the Snake Roberts showed up at ringside with Lance Archer. So Lance Archer is going to be his guy. Now, we talked about Lance Archer last week. When it came to Jake's protege, I said it was going to be one of two guys, Lance Archer or Brody Lee. Now, I actually thought that Brody Lee would be a better fit, because Brody Lee is a guy that's going to be coming in with a different name. He's never really had a whole lot of mic time in WWE to begin with, even though he can talk a little bit. Harper's good. But I thought he would be a better fit for Jake Roberts. You know, Lance Archer is 43 years old, and Luke Harper's not young either. I believe he's either close to 40 or 40. So neither one of these guys are young. So it's not like Jake can mentor some sort of a young guy, but I still feel that Brody Lee would have been a better fit for Roberts. I don't know. I could be proven wrong. I like Archer and everything. I just thought Brody would have been better. So it looks like it is going to be Archer. They sit out there at ringside to observe the Cody and Ortiz match because, as we saw last week, Jake Roberts said that his client is coming after Cody. So that's going to be Cody's first feud here, or Archer's first feud. Is going to be with Cody. Another thing that Cody's got going on that we've been talking about lately is he's been with Arn Anderson. Now, he's been flanked every week now on TV by Arn Anderson and his wife because they've dropped the Nightmare Collective. So Brandy is kind of hanging around with Cody as his cheerleader. He's got that Nar neck tattoo now that looks kind of crazy. And the whole thing with Arn Anderson, I've been very adamant about that. I don't like the pairing. Something smells fishy. I'm waiting for Arn Anderson to turn on him or something. I think it's kind of silly to do the angle like Arn is a coach. He's got the Denny's menu, he's got the playbook, and I've maintained all along that it just makes no sense for Cody to need a coach like that. Arn Anderson pretending to be Andy Reid is something that should be reserved for like a young guy or somebody that's like an underneath guy, like somebody like QT Marshall or someone that could use some guidance. Cody doesn't need guidance. Cody is the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Cody's been in the ring now for about 13 years. 12 years, maybe something like that. He is a veteran who knows what he's doing, and I think the pinnacle of this nonsense was a few weeks back when he wrestled Darby Allin. It's a couple months now, and they did the thing where Darby went for the coffin drop, but Arn got up on the apron and told Cody to put his knees up, and then he put his knees up, and I'm like, Cody, nobody needs to tell Cody to put his knees up. He should know what Darby's finisher is and have it scouted and be ready for it. So the whole idea that he's out there with a playbook and he's calling plays and he's a coach and he's giving advice, it's pointless. Cody doesn't need it. I feel like this would be much better suited for somebody that's young or somebody that's underneath on the card. One of those two things. You know, because that's kind of what they did with Shawn Spears, putting him with Tully, and just Arn being with Cody is just kind of strange, doesn't fit, don't like it, and I hope that it doesn't last forever. In the end, it's not really the end of the world. I like Arn, you know, it's just I don't like him with Cody, you know what I mean? So nothing against Arn. Arn, if you're listening, I love you. You're awesome. Your podcast's great. You're a legend. You're a stud. Keep doing your thing. Just don't do it with Cody. I like the finish in this match. A lot of people felt like Cody gave Ortiz too much. Maybe he did. I think Cody could have beat Ortiz a little bit more handily than he did, but wound up winning the match with submitting Ortiz in the figure four. When the fuck was the last time a figure four leg lock ended a match? I like that. That was pretty cool. After the match, they had Santana immediately attack Cody. Kenny Omega and Matt Jackson come out to make the save, and that's when the Inner Circle appear on the screen, and they're cutting a promo on Omega and Matt, and then they reveal that they have got Nick Jackson right at their feet. He's laying on the ground. They've pretty much murdered him. They put him under one of those big, sliding garage doors that are in all the arenas and smashed his head on it. They basically got his head underneath the door. There's blood coming out of his mouth. It looks like he's dead. So they go to commercial. During the split screen, you see the medical staff tending to Nick Jackson, and I guess he's going to be on the shelf for a little while. Would have been pretty crazy if they killed him on TV. Like if Jim Ross came back from the break and he's like, fans, I'm sorry, we've lost Nick. Talk about heat for the Inner Circle. But there's no end game there, so you can't be killing people on TV. But anyway, good stuff there from the Inner Circle, furthering the angle with the Elite guys and all that shit. Next up, we had kind of like a Daniels vignette where he's talking about the Exalted One and how the Exalted One is a lie, and he's going to prove that it's a lie. He's going to prove it's a lie. Strange logic here. He's going to prove it's a lie by, I guess, challenging individual members of the Dark Order to matches, and when the Exalted One doesn't come out to help them, that's going to prove that the Exalted One doesn't exist. That's what he thinks. I don't think that's totally accurate, but that's what he thinks. Now, ever since, I think it was on the first Dynamite or the second Dynamite, it was on one of the inaugural episodes of the show when Daniels got jumped by the Lucha Brothers and he got package pile driven on the ramp. I said right there that that's going to lead to a heel turn for Daniels. He's going to come back as a heel. And he never did. He came back to join SCU and all that shit. And then we started hearing about the rumors of the Exalted One, and the Dark Order is starting to really, really push that. Right around the same time that Matt Hardy's contract is up with WWE, Matt Hardy is liking AEW tweets. Evil Uno is liking Matt Hardy tweets. They're really trying to make you think this. And I've said all along that I don't think Matt Hardy, he makes the most sense in terms of them advertising a newcomer coming in and him coming in and getting a huge reaction. But is Matt Hardy really the best leader for the Dark Order? The Dark Order appear to be evil, a little bit more dark, a lot less entertaining than Matt Hardy, who's a lot of, and he's crazy and he's broken and he's woken and all these things. I don't see him. It almost seems like you'd be taking a comedy angle and putting it into something that's a little bit more darker and serious. And I think the leader and whoever the Exalted One is needs to be someone a little bit more darker and serious. And that could still be Matt. Maybe Matt isn't coming back with the afro and the broken gimmick. Maybe he's coming back as something completely different. But based on everything we've seen Matt Hardy do on his YouTube channel, you know, he's going to be coming in there as that crazy, kooky fucker. So I personally don't think he fits as the Exalted One. You know who else I don't think fits? Brody Lee. A lot of people are mentioning Brody Lee, and the reason I thought he was such a better fit for Jake the Snake Roberts was because he doesn't do a lot of talking. And Brody Lee, it would be nice to see him in a leadership role because he was always second fiddle. He was always just, you know, a minion for Bray Wyatt in the Wyatt family and everything like that. He doesn't seem like the guy that would really be the Exalted One, although I suppose he could be. You know, fans will recognize his face from the Wyatt family, and he's already been involved in one very, very dark faction. So in a way it would fit, but as far as him being the leader and everything, I don't know. I think it still could be him, but I don't know. My pick is Daniels. My pick has been Daniels all along. And with everything they did last week, it almost seems like they were making it a little bit too obvious that it's going to be him. Because a week ago, he came out on TV with the Higher Power Cloak, which is an excellent little throwback because back in 1999, the Fallen Angels, Christopher Daniels, was rumored to be the Higher Power, and it turned out to be Vince. So I would like to see some sort of a similar reveal where he's out there in the cloak and he does the thing. I think that would be a great little feather in the cap of Christopher Daniels, that he still gets to do the angle that he was rumored to do 22 years ago. So what would be even funnier, and I think back in February, AEW held a Dynamite in Austin, Texas. I would love, they're advertising the Exalted One to be revealed this week on Dynamite. And I don't know if they have to go to a smaller arena or an empty arena, if they might want to hold that off until they can get the crowd reaction. That's what I would do if I was AEW. If Dynamite doesn't go on as planned this week, or if it's an empty arena show or something like that, I'm not revealing the Exalted One. I'm waiting on that. But if it does happen this week, that means, you know, we can't stretch it out. But if it was up to me, I would wait until, I wish it could have been timed right to where Dynamite was in Austin, Texas. How cool would that have been if Daniels comes out with the cloak and he's in the ring and he rips off the hood and delivers the line? You know the line. It was me, Austin. It was me all along. I think that would be so fucking cool if they did that. But they're not in Austin. They were already there. None of that's going to work. But Daniels being the Exalted One, I think makes the most sense of everybody that's been rumored so far, even more so than Matt Hardy. I know that's everybody's instinct. Oh, it's Matt Hardy, and it very well could be. I just don't think he's as good of a fit as Daniels or Brody Lee, to be honest with you. As much as I think Daniels is the best and Brody is not my favorite, I still think they're both better than Hardy. Hardy should come in and do something else, do his broken gimmick and make that separate from the Dark Order, maybe even go up against the Dark Order or something like that is what I would do. I don't know. But either way, coronavirus or no coronavirus, should be interesting to see how that storyline plays out. We had the Butcher and the Blade teaming up with MJF. They defeated Jurassic Express in a pretty fun match there. I mean, Jungle Boy, watching him improve. He's improved greatly over the last year that I've seen him. Marco Stunt got a pretty fun hot tag. He's getting crowd pops from everybody, doing his thing in there, stomping the shit out of MJF at one point in the corner. Eventually, MJF is able to isolate Marco Stunt while Luchasaurus has done a flip dive over the top rope, and I don't know where the hell Jungle Boy is. Poor Stunt is in there all alone with MJF, and MJF taps him out. So the Butcher, Blade, and MJF pick up the win there. We had a pretty cool Darby Allin vignette where he's got this, this mannequin and with a picture of Sammy Guevara's face on it, and he zips it up and ties it to like a car and drags it away. It was very reminiscent of when the Big Show, or when Big Boss Man tied the Big Show's dad's coffin to the car and towed it away. Kind of funny stuff there. So the issue between Darby and Sammy Guevara is not over yet, which is fine with me because I like those guys and I like their feud. Fun promo with Britt Baker on the stage again. I'll tell you what, man, the way they are doing these interviews with Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone, it makes me feel like that they're building a match between the two of them at Double or Nothing or something. Every single week, Tony Schiavone has to go out there and get shit on by Britt Baker. This is no different. She's out there on the stage talking to Tony, making fun of the audience. I believe they were in Utah. Excuse me. Is that right? Talking about how busted and ugly they all are and shit like that. Big Swole winds up coming out, gets in Britt Baker's face, and Baker, pretty cool exchange here on the mic. Baker tells Swole, she says, you're not even the most significant wrestler in your house, or the only significant wrestler in your household is your boyfriend. And then Swole counters that by saying, I'm married, baby. That was an awesome fucking line right there, because we all know that Britt Baker is with Adam Cole and Big Swole is married. I didn't know who she was married to, so I Googled it on Wednesday right after she said that, and it's Cedric Alexander. No idea. I had no idea the two of them were together or even married. So there are a lot of crossover couples in this company. Is there not? Big Swole and Cedric, Britt Baker and Adam Cole, Jon Moxley and Renee Young, Shawn Spears, Peyton Royce. You guys throw some more at me. There might be more than that, but it's pretty amazing how many, couples are intertwined there, all infused and entwined, as Joe Dirt would say. We also had the Death Triangle having their first match as an actual unit there, taking on Joey Janela and the Private Party. They defeat them rather handily. After the match, they kind of put all three guys in a submission. I think that's supposed to be called like the Death Triangle. Very cool looking thing there. Very cool set up how it looked like they were playing Twister. But the Lucha Brothers and Pac had everybody stretching all those motherfuckers at one time. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed the sit-down interview with Moxley and Jim Ross. That was also pretty good. Moxley is not cleared to wrestle after being dropped off the stage last week to close out Dynamite. So I'm glad that they gave, they're not overdoing it and putting Moxley in our face too much. He had a little sit-down here with JR. That was fine. And then in the main event, it was Hangman Page with a mystery partner taking on Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. Now, earlier on, Dustin Rhodes cuts a promo insisting that he's going to be the one to do it, and he is the one to do it, but there's a ton of dissension there with Hangman and Dustin, but they wind up winning the match anyway. Dustin did some sort of uppercut. I forgot what he did, but it led to Hangman doing the buckshot lariat on poor Sammy and pinning him. After the match, the Inner Circle jumped the ring, and they attack everybody. They also take out Cody Rhodes, Matt Jackson, and Kenny Omega, who all attempt to run down and make the save, and they're taken out one by one. And in the end, it sees for like the second or third week in a row, the Inner Circle standing pretty tall to close the show. So it was a very good Dynamite, but I just think it didn't hold up to NXT just this week. But still, all in all, a really fun Wednesday, and unfortunately might be our last Wednesday like this for a while. A lot of Wednesdays from here on out might look a lot different, and that's kind of sad. And speaking of different, we got to talk about SmackDown last night. Let me knock out something. A super chat from Michael. Thanks for another $5, dude. I appreciate it. I was hoping DiBiase was going to be the ministry's higher power back then. Yeah, man. Back in my hotline days, the speculation. I remember it was the three big rumors were DiBiase, Jake Roberts, and the Ultimate Warrior, and Brother Love, because they had all had history with the Undertaker. They were all guys, well, with the exception of the Warrior, that kind of had an influence on him. Brother Love was his manager. Jake Roberts, was a very influential person, and things like that. So it would have made sense if it was one of those guys. And if it turned out to be DiBiase, that would also make sense, because he's the one that initially brought Undertaker in, and he even did the angle when there was the Undertaker versus Undertaker thing in 1994. So there's a lot of history there. But I remember, man, the speculation. That was one of the biggest letdowns in wrestling history, in the history of wrestling, based only on, because I remember all of the speculation. I used to talk about it on my hotline. Who's it going to be? Who's the higher power going to be? And I was dead set on Jake Roberts. I was dead set on Jake. I thought for sure it would be Jake. And when Vince McMahon took that stupid hood off, oh my God, you talk about a letdown. That was just so dumb, because it also made no sense. Vince McMahon was going up against The Undertaker. The Undertaker was invading his home and burning teddy bears and kidnapping his daughter and shit like that. And it comes to find out Vince was behind it the whole time. It didn't make, there's way too many plot holes there. So Vince, it was one of those occasions, like I've said before, where WWE starts something not knowing what the end result is going to be. And every time they do that, it's a letdown. Just like the who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin when they did that angle. They didn't know a year before who it was going to be. They just played it by ear, and they'd come up with it when it was time, and they decided on Rikishi, and it sucked. Same thing with Undertaker. When he started referencing a higher power, they did not know who it was going to be. There's no way they knew that it was going to be Vince McMahon, because if they did, they would probably have structured the storylines a little bit differently. They could still do things to throw you off and be surprised that it was Vince, but none of it made sense when you saw everything that Vince had done previously leading up to that moment. So there's just no way. It's WWE. It's one of their worst qualities, is they fucking do this shit all the time, and they just never have a plan. They never, ever, ever have a plan. And they start something, and they don't finish it. Assholes. Anyway, let's talk about last night's SmackDown, the first of what will likely be many empty arena shows. Very eerie and strange and surreal to see this. WWE luckily has this performance center that they can use as a failsafe to still produce TV if this virus continues, and they still want to produce TV. Like I said at the beginning of the episode here, and you feel free to rewind back and hear my thoughts on the coronavirus and WrestleMania and everything like that. We opened up the podcast with that, and one of the things I said is that if WrestleMania is canceled, I don't know why you would continue TV, because then you got to continue the storylines going, but then there's no WrestleMania to have the matches. So what the hell do you do? And do you just stop? I would halt everything. I would halt all the storylines if they postpone WrestleMania like 30 days. That way you can still do all of the matches. But if they postpone WrestleMania for 30 days at first, just to see how it goes, because like I said, you can postpone it a month. There's still no guarantee it'll happen by then. If they postpone it a month and say, all right, we'll see, what does WWE do in the meantime? That means you've added 7 more weeks of build to all of these matches. Like, they are in such a tight spot here. So if WrestleMania, it's announced this week that they're going to postpone it for 1 month, if I was WWE, I would probably halt everything, but can't really do that either. You got to produce TV, you got to get money from your advertisers and do all of that. So they're in a tight spot. I don't know how it's going to work out creatively. Whatever happens, it's probably not going to be good. And it's going to really disrupt the flow of the angles and the storylines, and maybe even take away from the enthusiasm from all of us who are anxious to see these things, but are kind of in this holding pattern right now. And it's just tough. The whole thing sucks. So last night, SmackDown was in the Performance Center, which we knew. They announced that a couple days before. Raw's going to be there on Monday as well. No fans in the arena, excuse me. On commentary for this, we had Michael Cole and Triple H. Shout out to Triple H, who was the most entertaining part of this entire show, easily. Very enthusiastic, very positive. I really appreciated Triple H's attitude during the show, because he was trying to, he's basically like, fuck this virus. He said, I'm going to shoot tonight. I'm going to have fun. They were there just to have a good time. And that's really all you can do. And I appreciated the enthusiasm in them trying to send the message of, just still try to live your life. Let's not be totally living in fear here yet, and at least try to find things in our lives that we can enjoy. And I think Triple H was really hell-bent on getting that message across. So good for him. Very interesting, too, that he did happen to be on commentary right after we hear the news stories break over the week, or during the course of the week, that he did take kind of a quiet demotion in the company. He's no longer in charge of talent relations. That's somebody else's gig now. He is still firmly in control of NXT, but his role and his title in the company has been diminished and lightened somewhat. Now, he even kind of joked about that on commentary. I don't think that's anything serious. Triple H is not like leaving the company or anything like that. But it is kind of crazy to hear that he was demoted when we all kind of assumed that he was going to be the guy to really take the reins for Vince McMahon. But if WWE winds up selling to Amazon or selling to Disney or some shit like that, then, you might not ever have a Vince McMahon again, and that's going to spell trouble. I think part of the reason why WWE did succeed so well was that they did have a Vince McMahon back in his less crazy days. If you don't have a Vince anymore, when it's now owned by a corporation, and yes, people are going to be in charge, but when another entity purchases a wrestling company, that's when people like Jim Herd are born. and we don't want that in WWE. The last fucking thing we need in WWE is a Jim Herd. It's bad enough we got a Vince, at least Vince knows wrestling, So I worry that could be the future in years to come of WWE if they do wind up selling, and the McMahons as a family no longer own that. It could change the way things look internally, and maybe the Triple H demotion is all part of that. Don't really know. But anyway, props to Triple H for being very, very entertaining last night on commentary. He even held the camera at one point filming Michael Cole. He drew Michael Cole's little soul patch in with a magic marker. Him and Triple H and Mojo Rawley collectively assaulted Michael Cole, double teamed him, smacked him around a little bit at the announce table, which was also fun. So all of Triple H's shenanigans were a joy to watch last night. And the empty arena was very cool. I mean, very cool, sort of. I mean, it was definitely a different vibe, definitely a very different type of atmosphere. And it was going to be weird to see wrestlers kind of get in there and work. Now, they opened up with a women's match. It was Bayley and Sasha against Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. I shout out to Sean Ross Sapp. He was sent a video from a guy on Twitter, I believe from Israel. Now, there are some parts of the world where you can get the full broadcast of the shows without the commercials. So basically, when the rest of the world is watching commercials, you're still watching the show. I've watched a couple of AEW Dynamites like this when I've forgotten to DVR them on my own TV, so I pulled up like an illegal stream, and one night I was watching, I'm like, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at Sammy Guevara doing the cue cards, but there's no split screen. So there are ways to see the show fully through without the commercials. So when they went to commercial break during the women's tag, the girls stopped wrestling, which, I mean, really, why would you continue? There's no fans there or anything, but it is visible to some fans internationally. So whoever saw that sent that video over to Sean, and he posted it. He was like, holy shit, they did stop wrestling. And Alexa Bliss kind of got mad about it. She's like, dude, don't show that, man. We're just trying to go out there and do what we can. And he was apologetic right away. He's like, I'm sorry, it's an international broadcast. Had nothing. I wasn't trying to call you out or criticize or anything like that. I was just showing it, and she was cool with it and fine. She made up, no big deal. But it was interesting that they kind of just stood there. You can see the footage. They're kind of just standing around, not doing anything. But is that really a big surprise? If there's no fans in the audience, why are you going to continue to wrestle? That would be pointless. So it did get leaked out, though. Not a big deal, but kind of amusing. We also saw Daniel Bryan with Drew Gulak defeating Cesaro. Now, this was set up backstage. Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak had that great match at Elimination Chamber on Sunday, and I had mentioned on Sunday how cool it would be if the two of them were a tag team. And then here we see on last night on Friday, Bryan approaching Drew Gulak, basically acknowledging that, you know what, you were right. There are holes in my game. You exposed me at Elimination Chamber. Even though I still beat you, you still, I believe you now what you said about my in-ring game, and I need to work on it, and I'm willing to listen. So basically, Bryan is now seeking out the advice of Drew Gulak, basically because he earned his respect at Elimination Chamber. And you saw that at the end of the match. Undertaker had a lot of matches like this throughout his career as well, after he would beat somebody in a really hard-fought match against an opponent that he maybe wasn't expecting that much of a fight out of. He kind of gives him a look after the match, like, damn, I think he did that with Heidenreich, Luther Reigns, a lot of these just like random people that they put him in the ring with. He would beat him and kind of look at him like, damn, you took me to the limit. Daniel Bryan gave Drew Gulak that same look at Elimination Chamber, and it kind of got me wondering. I'm like, they might. I kind of think the feud should continue, and I want to see some more good matches between the two. But if they turn out to form an alliance here, get Undisputed Era up to this fucking roster right now and give me some Undisputed Era versus Gulak and Bryan matches. Holy shit. And you independent nuts out there can probably tell me if a match like that has even happened before. Maybe it has. Well, maybe not. Now, Bryan's been there so long now. But I like it. I like the fact that these two guys might be forming a little bit of an alliance, and it might be a lighter workload for Daniel Bryan if he does wind up forming a tag team or something with him. It's going to help out his, work in the ring and maybe not taking it so hard and taking it easy in there, because he is dealing with, concussions and things like that. And he was out of the ring for a very long time. So I kind of like the alliance there. Daniel Bryan defeated Cesaro. Sami Zayn, the newly crowned Intercontinental Champion, was at ringside as well with Shinsuke. They were doing guest commentary. They jumped the ring and had a big attack and a brawl after the match. Just very interesting. Just very interesting to see the way the show looks in front of no fans. Very crazy. I thought they might hold out on the Jeff Hardy return, but they didn't. Jeff Hardy made his return on SmackDown last night in front of an empty arena to take on none other than Baron Corbin. I'm surprised that that's Jeff Hardy's first opponent. Baron Corbin is not a guy that I feel like WWE just randomly beats regularly on TV. You know, he's not. So I was very happy, and I'm sure the fans were too, because we all know how they feel about Corbin, to see Jeff Hardy come back and defeat Baron Corbin. And what was interesting about this is that during the match, when Jeff Hardy hits the twist of fate on Baron Corbin, Michael Cole, like a complete psycho, just starts screaming out like 7 times in a row, "Twist of Fury. Twist of Fury. Twist of Fury" by Jeff. He hit him with the Twist of Fury. And I'm like, Twist of Fury? Did I sleep through a name change or something? And I immediately thought about Matt Hardy. I'm like, he might have snagged a trademark there. And as a matter of fact, I think he trademarked Twist of Fate years ago, back when he was in TNA. And now that Matt Hardy is gone, WWE can't use Twist of Fate anymore. So they're calling it Twist of Fury, which is just crazy. I feel like Jeff Hardy should have a right to that name as well, right? Twist of Fate. But Matt Hardy went out and trademarked it a few years back. No big deal. So now when they hit that diamond cutter-like move, it's going to be called the Twist of Fury, which is just stupid. But I love it when trademarks bite WWE in the ass. These motherfuckers go out there and trademark everything. They sent cease and desist orders to the fucking Bullet Club for the goddamn hand signal. So whenever it happens to them, I'm so happy. I hope it's a complete pain in their ass. Cody Rhodes, even in a recent interview or press conference, said that he went around trademarking stuff just to get under the skin of WWE. And incidentally, the fate of Blood and Guts is still way up in the air for AEW. Don't even know if that's going to happen in 2 weeks or not. But, you know, they explained the rules of Blood and Guts on Dynamite this week, and it's fucking War Games. But they can't use War Games because WWE owns it. So fuck the WWE. I like it. I like it when it comes back on them for once, and they're the victims of a trademark issue. This one's pretty minor, though. Isn't going to cause them any problems in the long run. They're just going to call the move something different. No big deal. But didn't sound right to me. Didn't sound right at all. We also had on SmackDown about 30 minutes of filler. They replayed almost the entire Elimination Chamber tag team match from last Sunday. Now, I saw some people complaining, but I'm like, come on. I mean, is it really that hard to just not be a whiny little bitch for 5 minutes? Can we just appreciate the circumstances that we're under here? This is a very unique situation. Empty arena show. WWE's trying to go about business as usual in the wake of this goddamn pandemic, this global pandemic that we're all going through right now, and we're going to sit there and we're going to pick apart and criticize like this on SmackDown. Don't do that. Don't be that asshole. You know, yeah, it was a match that wasn't really good on Sunday, and I didn't really need to see it again, but under the circumstances, you know, it might get a little bit much to have match after match after match in front of an empty arena. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Monday Night Raw does a lot of recaps on Monday as well, showing clips from last week or maybe the week before, or maybe even an Elimination Chamber match. Don't forget, Raw is 3 hours, not 2. So we got 3 hours of this shit on Monday night. So I didn't really have a problem with them adding some filler to a show that is really different. You know, it's just a unique circumstance, and I'm all for crapping on the WWE when their storylines and their angles are lazy and dumb, but I cannot criticize them for what's going on right now. They got a lot on their plate. They got a lot to worry about, a lot to think about. And don't forget, these wrestlers are performing for us. In a lot of ways, they could be risking their lives, or at least risking infection in order to do these things, and at least out of respect for them, just don't be a dick. I got a lot of tweets, people tagging me in tweets. I can't believe they're doing this on SmackDown. This looks stupid. And why are they showing this Elimination Chamber match? And I'm like, dude, just chill, man. Give them a break. You know, like, why are fans just so predisposed to go from zero to asshole in 5 seconds? I don't understand. It's the same thing like I talked about at the beginning of the show with Vince McMahon. Everybody just assumes that this is all about Vince McMahon. The only thing he cares about is greed and putting dollars in his pocket, when in actuality, WrestleMania puts dollars in thousands of people's pockets, and it's not always about Vince McMahon's greed. Hell, the XFL is paying their players who aren't even playing. So it's not just all about greed. As much as the fans want to believe that, it ain't true. And as far as, you know, what they did on SmackDown, I didn't really have any problems with it. I thought everybody put forth a good effort. I thought it was an interesting looking show under the circumstances, and I liked it. And the ratings are in for SmackDown. It had its like second highest viewership of this year. Probably out of curiosity. People want to see what the fuck that was going to look like. But it's comforting to know that fans did tune into that. And I saw a lot of people criticizing, but I also saw a lot of people like me who appreciated the show and thought it was pretty interesting. I'm not giving it an A+ or anything, but given the fact that they're in the Performance Center in front of an empty arena trying to do what they can, I thought they still produced a good show. And a lot of reason why they did was because of the main event segment with John Cena. So not only did Jeff Hardy returned, John Cena also came back. He's back in the ring this week on SmackDown to further his issue with Bray Wyatt. Now, I was wondering if we were going to get a Firefly Funhouse like on the screen, but instead, during John Cena's promo, and I didn't listen to all of it, but I do know that he kind of called out the locker room a little bit, maybe on some of their lazy attitude during this or something. I don't really know what he said there, but it was just interesting to hear John Cena talk without any crowd reaction. He didn't get any boos. Roman Reigns got no boos either. He came out for a sit-down interview in the ring with Michael Cole, which I also like because it gave you a bet without the fans screaming how bad he sucks. It helps you get to know Roman as a person and see him speak in that sort of tone, and that atmosphere was different than you would normally do if you were in the ring. And it was funny, too, speaking of that, your instincts to react to the audience. I swear in that women's match, a couple of times, Bayley or whoever it was like, talking to the crowd, but there's no crowd there. That was kind of weird. I think they've just been so trained to do that. They can't they're just instinctively go to the crowd where there's nobody there. That's kind of weird. But anyway, Cena's talking, doing his thing. Bray Wyatt comes through the chairs or through the empty audience there. He's dressed as Funhouse Bray Wyatt. And he also says some pretty interesting things on the mic, talks about what John Cena did to him 6 years ago. I liked it because of the empty arena. It made it feel like the two guys were maybe talking in a room. Bray Wyatt didn't have to talk very loud, and he's never really a screamer, but Wyatt didn't have to have that loud voice that he normally has. They were much more quieter in their tones, and the way they were cutting the promos and the way they were delivering the lines had a little bit more of a real feel to it, I feel like. Had a little bit more, and it was more reality-based. So everybody is singing the praises of this feud, and I am too, but every time, because I'm liking Wyatt and Cena. I think provided, this virus isn't standing in our way, the build to this could be really fun, and there's a lot of history to draw back on. But every time I see Bray Wyatt now, I can't get the jackhammer out of my mind. Bray Wyatt doesn't seem like a threat to me because he got pinned by the weakest looking move in the world. My 95-year-old grandmother could have punched him in the mouth and pinned him as easily as he got pinned from that jackhammer, which really wasn't even a jackhammer. Seth Rollins buries him under metal, electrocutes him, smashes him in the head with a mallet, blasts his brains in, and he lives. Goldberg hits him with a shitty little suplex, and he gets pinned. And I cannot get that vision out of my mind. Every time I look at Bray Wyatt now, I just feel like I appreciate the promo between him and Cena. I'm looking forward to the match, but the Bray Wyatt mystique of, oh my God, can this guy be stopped, is gone. We know he can be stopped. And if a shitty jackhammer can beat him, so can a 5-knuckle shuffle. Although, if I'm a betting man right now, I'm going to be picking Bray Wyatt to go over Cena at WrestleMania. That's what I think they would do here. Because if Cena now beats him right after Goldberg does, what do you do with Bray Wyatt now? So whenever that match happens, whether it's on April 5th or a month after that or whatever, I think Bray Wyatt will win and get the best of them there. So, that's kind of just like a casual recap of SmackDown. Very strange show to watch, but also very interesting. And yeah, we'll have to see, where it all goes from here. And that is pretty much the conclusion of my notes as well. Damn, we got a good audience in here again. Last couple of weeks have been solid on the channel. Smash that thumbs up for me. I would really appreciate it. Is there any other super chats at the moment I have to answer? Not at the moment, so I'm just going to peek in the chat here and answer some questions, and then we will go on from there. I missed 205 Live. They also had an empty arena show. I didn't see any of that, so you guys can let me know how that was, if it was any good. Yeah, well, maybe WWE doesn't need fans during promos. They don't. We saw that, but you still have to have fans in the audience. Oh, Jeff was doing it too? I missed that. Yeah, I was only kind of eyeballing it. It was just so interesting. Yeah, see, yeah, Jacob, it's these kind of opinions that are just way too much out there. WWE is a basket case. What the fuck does that even mean? Storylines are an embarrassment. I don't think Randy Orton and Edge is an embarrassment at all. I think that's great stuff, and I know WWE has its problems, but it's those stupid blanket statements that you hear all the time that is just loaded with ignorance, and it's fueled by the fucked up negative and cynical narratives that are all over fucking YouTube. And you, Jacob, need to stop listening to those people. Criticize WWE when they deserve it, but don't be stupid about it. You know what I mean? Because trust me, WWE deserves a ton of criticism. The problem is the fans just take it 10 times too far, and they criticize everything, and they don't accept anything, even when it's good. And they're just unable to balance that mentality out in the brain because they're all fucking unstable and don't know how to organize their thoughts. It's not that hard. Not that hard at all. Yeah, Devlin, I am too. I'm worried about the Mania build. We talked all about that at the top of the show here. Like, what are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do with this? You know, if WrestleMania continues, and if it goes on as planned, it's going to make the build very weird. It's going to make the Hall of Fame and the Go Home SmackDown and TakeOver very strange. And then if they postpone the show, what do you do with the angles until then? Do you put them on hold, or do you just build them even slower? You know, I've always said that I think Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, there should be no pay-per-view in between, and you should dedicate all 8 to 10 weeks of that build to your storyline. So they have a chance to do that now if WrestleMania is postponed a month and they have to do shit on television between now and then to further these angles. But, you know, with everything involved, you know, it just depends on what the government does or says or what they say we can or cannot do. If WWE can run shows, I think they will do the empty arena thing for a while, or for as long as they can. But as far as WrestleMania at this point, as much as I hate to say it, I would almost prefer that they just postpone it. I don't want to see them try to just make it work. Just give us anything they can on April 5th and just do it. I don't want to see it thrown together. I don't want to see it half-assed or decided on the spur of the moment 3 days before WrestleMania. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do it. You can't get prepared. And that's another question I have. What about the WrestleMania set? I'm pretty sure that right around this time of year, about 3 weeks out from WrestleMania, is when we start getting those first initial pictures of the set construction. So is that going forward? Because it's going to take a couple of weeks to build that thing. So do they build the set? Is anybody there now? Does anybody know the answer to this? So that's another really interesting little part of this, is that if they have everything on hold and they decide they can do WrestleMania, how are they going to throw that set up in 2 days? It almost feels like they have to prepare for it, because they probably could. They could just build the fucking set, because between now and whenever they would postpone WrestleMania, there's not going to be anything else held in that building anyway. So it's not like anybody else needs it. So I suppose they could set it all up, but I don't know. I just don't know how anything is going to work. There's so many unanswered questions right now, and just so much uncertainty. We just don't know. We just don't know. And it's a shame. I hope it gets better fast. Yeah, I'm with you, Devlin. Although, I mean, I have a feeling, though, we haven't seen the worst yet. That's the problem here. And that's what a lot of the experts are saying, is there's all these infected people. We don't even know that they're infected. And we're past the containment stage. The virus will spread no matter what you do, no matter if you halt traffic or halt travel, or, you know, if you limit public gatherings and things like that, it will still spread. This type of stuff just helps it spread slower. So we have to try to buy time and try not to have it get out of control until we can work out a solution and things like that. And it's just a very, very different and scary time. And it really sucks that everybody's lives across the world is affected by this. And based on all of the travel bans, you know, from Europe, the UK and Ireland, I would just prefer, just for the fans' benefit, for WrestleMania not to go on April 5th. Because I would love for these fans overseas to be able to come. So if we can postpone it in a couple months, things look better, and, you know, officials feel like it's safe to travel, or safe enough, you know, with the risks to travel, then we can do it. But I'd rather just wait at this point. I can't believe I'm hoping that WrestleMania gets canceled, but I just think that's the best scenario right now, instead of trying to throw something together in 3 weeks and do a whole bunch of empty arena shows and then one big WrestleMania. I just don't think Tampa's going to go for it. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think they're going to postpone it or cancel it. And that's just extremely depressing to say. Just don't like anything about this situation. So anyway, I think that is going to be it here in a minute. I'll answer a couple more questions before I'll get out of here. And then I got to head to work and see what I can do. Matt Alford, I was going to read your comment. I lost it. Go ahead with WrestleMania. I commend them for not canceling it. Vince is friends with Trump, so maybe he's called a favor. No, that's a completely ridiculous assessment. Not true at all, Matt. Again, it's that idea that it's all up to Vince. It's not. It's up to Vince right now, but it's not going to be all up to him ultimately. The city of Tampa is going to cancel this thing. It doesn't matter what Vince does or who he calls favors into. That they're not going to do that. They're not going to risk the lives and infection of so many people when you can just postpone it and do it later. You know, that's just not true, man. Simply not true. Thank you, JJ Richardson. No, I don't think we're in martial law territory yet either. You know, I live across the street from a lot of restaurants and shops, and there's cars everywhere. You know, I know the grocery store shelves are getting lighter and stuff like that, but there's still plenty of stuff there and plenty of stuff available. And you know, I put this on Twitter yesterday too. I live across the street from a Chick-fil-A, and the cars are still wrapped around that sumbitch all the way around, just like always. And they got their little drone bees in their headsets out there taking orders. So for the most part, people are still out and about and doing things, but I think eventually they are going to want people to not do anything if they don't have to. It's probably safest to stay at home right now, and definitely don't get on an airplane. And I think all that's going to factor into, you know, WrestleMania and the fact that it's just not working out for April 5th, and they should postpone it. I think they should. And I'm not saying cancel it. I don't want WrestleMania canceled. I want it postponed. I would be bummed out if we just didn't have a WrestleMania this year. But if we can get a handle on things sooner rather than later, and we can maybe be back to business in 2 months, then a postponement is possible. If this is something that's going to be 6 months or longer before we really start resuming our lives, then not only is WrestleMania probably not going to happen, but SummerSlam will be in jeopardy as well. So I'm hoping that it can be just rescheduled for May. Give us 30 more days. That'll give us almost a total of 60 days now, about 50 days away from that maybe things could get safe enough to where city officials, WWE, and everybody else feels safe enough to and comfortable enough to hold the show. Let's hope that's what goes on here. So this is about the third week in a row I've got to sign off by stranding 500 or 600 people in the chat room. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything. I hope you guys are surviving and getting through this as best as you can, and whatever's going on in your life and however this coronavirus is affecting you in any way, I wish you the very best. You know, whether you're affected in your job or if you're out of work or whatever, just hope you get through it. Good luck. And hey, one thing we still have is the internet, right? At least this isn't some sort of a natural disaster where we're losing electricity, we're losing power. At least if we're in our homes, and at least if we can't have public gatherings, I can still be here, right? I'm not performing in front of an empty chat room. We're all here hanging out, and at least it's fun. So as long as this coronavirus lasts, and the more I'm out of work, you know, because I'm nervous as shit financially. You know, I got rent coming up. My rent's $2,100, man. You know, and I'm not working right now, so I got things to work out. It's tough. So I know I'm not the only one. We're all dealing with this stuff. So I think it's time to all kind of remain as positive as possible and be there for each other and stay informed and wash your hands and be safe and don't be stupid. That's all I really ask. Follow those rules. You should be all right. So anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your weekend. I will be back with you on Monday for a live Raw watch along. I'll be up here right when the show starts, and we will watch all 3 hours together in that empty arena at the Performance Center. It's going to be interesting. So you guys be good, and I'll talk to you in just a couple of days. Peace.